3D, addition of integers. So now that we've dealt with the number line and dealt with integers and real numbers, we can start doing some operations on these real numbers, and specifically we're going to deal with integers to start. The idea of adding integers is kind of a mix of the addition we've done with whole numbers and the way that order relations happen with number lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a problem on the board, and then I'm going to use a number line to demonstrate what's happening with it. And we'll do that with a couple problems, and then I'm going to teach you a little trick that allows you to do it without doing a number line. 5 plus negative 3. Remember we said that sometimes we put parentheses around negative numbers. And here's the reason why. If we didn't put that, you'd have 5 plus minus 3, and that could be very confusing. So we put that out in there to separate it so we can see, oh, it's 5 plus negative 3. And we want to find out what that equals. So let's use a number line to solve that. So how we're going to use a number line to solve this is we're going to say, remember that signs tell us direction. So we can think of the numbers as movement. So we start with the number 5. Well, that's moved 5 to the right from 0. So we're actually starting at that 5 over here. And then plus negative 3. Remember that sign gives you movement, so that's telling you that it's movement to the left by 3. So 1, 2, 3 gives us 2. We started at 5, and then we added negative 3, that negative sign telling us that it's going to move to the left by 3, giving us 2. Let's try another one. Negative 2 plus negative 4. Sorry, my 4 did not come out correct. There we go. Negative 2 plus negative 4. Let's draw another number line. Two, 4. Negative 2, negative 4, negative 6. Okay, so I've got my number line. So we're going to start at this negative 2. And then we add a negative 4. That negative 4 is going to move us to the left by 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, resulting in negative 6. So that's using a number line. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, how often do you really want to use a number line? Not really. You don't want to draw this out for every single problem. So I can understand that. So let's get into a little trick that'll help us to get through this without having to draw number lines every single time we have one of these problems. So here's your rule of thumb. If you have a positive number plus another positive number, you will get a positive number as the result, and you just add the two numbers. So you just add the two numbers and the result will be positive. If you have a negative number plus a negative number, the result will be negative. So add the two magnitudes, right, the values themselves, and then just make the sign negative. If you have a positive number added to a negative number, we don't know initially what's going to happen, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to subtract the two values, and we're going to keep the sign of the larger number, not the greater number, remember, not which is further right on the number line, but the larger number, meaning -7 and +2. 7 is larger than 2, so we're going to keep that negative sign. Keep sign of larger number. Okay, and same thing when we have a negative plus a positive, because remember the commutative property of addition says that we can move things around. 3 plus 2 is equal to 2 plus 3, they're both 5. So whether we take a positive plus a negative or a negative plus a positive, same result. So again, we're going to subtract, and then we're going to keep the sign of the larger number. So that's going to be our general rule and the method that we use for this. So let's do some examples. -2 plus -7 is equal to. Well, the first thing we look at are the signs. We have negative and negative. Signs are the same, they're both negative, which if the signs are the same, then we are going to add the numbers and keep the sign. 2 plus 7 is 9. The signs were both negative, so -9. 5 plus -3. 5 plus -3, signs are different, so we're going to subtract the two numbers. 5 minus 3 is 2. And we're going to keep the sign of the larger number. 5 is larger than 3, so +2. Eight plus, actually make it -8 plus 12. -8 plus 12, signs are different, so we're going to subtract 12 minus 8, and we always subtract the smaller number from the larger number. 12 minus 8 is 4. 12 is larger than 8, so we're going to keep that positive sign, plus 4. 6 plus 3, both numbers are positive, so we're going to add them. 9, they're both positive, so we get to keep the 9. And that's it. We look at the signs. If the signs are the same, add them and keep the sign. If the signs are different, subtract them and take the sign of the larger number. So that's adding integers. Now, if I can take a little aside here, let's talk a little bit about calculators. Okay, calculators tend to vary a lot in what they do, but we have to be careful when dealing with negative numbers and sign numbers in calculators, because calculators have two buttons that sometimes look very similar. There's the minus button, which is subtraction, and then usually they have another button. Actually, they always have another button, but the question is, what does it look like? Sometimes it looks like this, a negative in parentheses, or it may look like this, plus minus, plus minus, anything of those sorts, right? So we have to be careful. The subtraction key is for subtraction only. If I were to press the subtraction key and then 3, most calculators will do one of two things. If there is nothing in the calculator, no previous calculations that are still answers that are still sitting there, it's going to go -3, and it's going to go error. It's going to tell you there's a problem with that. Let me grab a TI-84 here and clear it out. So if I go minus -3 and hit enter, I get syntax error. Try and get it where you can see that, but syntax error. So there's a problem. It doesn't like that. Okay? The other thing that can happen is if there is already some value in there. So right now I have 56 in the calculator. Right? I don't know if I'm trying to get it where you can see that. If I go -3, it now tries to take that answer that's in the calculator and subtract 3 from it. So it's great, it's subtracted. Unfortunately, we're trying to get a -3. So that's a dangerous thing to do. What we really want to do is we want to press the negation button, 3, and that'll just give me a -3. And you can see near the bottom of this calculator, there is a negative button there. Actually, it's a little hard to see, but it's right here. You can get a view. You see there's parentheses with a negative sign in it, and that will give me -3. So if I hit that and hit enter, it gives me the -3 that I'm looking for. Trying to get this so you can see it. There we go. So you have to be very careful about those. Also, you can't do 5 -3 because it wants to see subtraction, and that'll give you an error. So just be careful as you're plugging things into your calculator. There's a minus button, and then there's a negative button. Make sure you use the right one, otherwise you're going to run into problems. And a very common problem is that one where you already have something in the calculator, and it uses that and then subtracts from it, and you may not even realize it happened. So be very careful about that. All right, so let's find the following using a calculator. So practice this yourself. Plug these into your calculator. So if I have 17 plus -8 equals. Now, depending on your calculator, the keystrokes that you use for this may vary. Generally, you don't need to put the parentheses in there, so you may do 17 plus -8 equals. That's if you have a calculator that can handle that, so something like a TI-30, actually go for a multi-view, a TI multi-view, or a graphing calculator. And actually, I think you can get away with like a TI-30X2S also. But if you have like a single variable calculator, a TI-30XA or something of the sort, you would actually have to put it in 17 plus 8 and then the negative sign to tell it to negate the 8 equals. Okay? So try it out on your calculator and see how it works. Well, when you take 17 plus -8, you'll come out with +9. So plug it into your calculator and make sure that it works. -4 plus -19. Again, practice plugging this into your calculator. You probably don't have to put the parentheses there because you're making it a -4, not a -4. Okay, so you may be able to plug this in as -4 plus -19 equals, and it comes out. If you're using that TI-30XA, you'd have to do 4 negative plus 19 negative equals. And when you do that, you should come out with -23. So practice with your calculator, get used to doing this with your calculator, because that could make all the difference in how your numbers come out. In fact, it will make all the difference in how well your numbers come out.